Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Having been read 3 times, shall the bill be passed? All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There are 51 ayes, 17 nays. The bill is passed. Gentleman for the 69.
In a flash, the debate was over in the Wisconsin Assembly. After 3 days of nonstop debate, Republicans abruptly passed a controversial budget measure. The measure now heads to the state Senate, where all 14 Democrats have fled, trying to hold up the vote.
That beginning the first week of April, 1,500 state employees will have to be laid off for the equivalent of $30 million worth of savings.
Governor Scott Walker spelled it out for the missing 14 Senate Democrats: return to work or force Wisconsin residents out of work.
The minority party are standing in contempt of democracy.
Citing constitutional authority and consulting private legal counsel, Fitzgerald's resolution, approved by all Republicans present, compels the attendance of the absent Democrats and the use of law enforcement to bring them back if necessary.
Tonight, with no warning, Republicans announced that they took everything budget-related out of what they were calling the budget bill, leaving only the union stripping provisions. Republicans, of course, had insisted that union stripping was a fiscal issue, but tonight, in order to try to pull this rabbit out of a hat, they decided it wasn't a fiscal issue anymore and that therefore they no longer needed that pesky quorum. And with no warning, they convened a conference committee, Democrats say in violation of the state's open meeting law. The last-minute conference committee passed the union stripping bill. Here's what this looked like.
This proposal would not trigger the special quorum requirement in Article 8, Section 8 of the Wisconsin Constitution. At this time, I would move to adopt the adoption of the proposal.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
As the conference
Mr. Chairman,
report.
excuse me. I have a question about the open meetings rule being violated. You were not given 2 hours notice, first of all. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, there's a requirement. I have like a 24-hour notice here from Attorney General Van Hollen, the current Attorney General.
Representative Bartlett, let me discussion. Let me recognize you. Discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, Mr. Chairman, and most importantly, before we even get started, obviously I'm going to want to have a summary of this bill from our Director Lang, so I understand what's in here.
It's the same bill you debated for 60 hours.
Oh, there's nothing different?
No, they just removed items from it.
They removed what?
Removed items. Nothing new.
Oh, so we can get a description of what was removed.
There's nothing new.
Well, you said things were removed, Mr. Chairman. I want to know what's removed. It seems to me that the body should add, our committee should know what we're voting on. I don't know what was removed. I need to know that. So I do want a description from Director Lang. Secondly, I have a couple of motions I would like to make as amendments to this.
No motions.
Clearly,
no motions will be
conference committees do have an opportunity for people to amend a bill.
No, there's no motion.
So I want to be able to present those. But before we even get into that, I want to say that this is a violation of the open meetings law. It is required, I got a memo here from our current Attorney General, not a past one, the current one, August of 2010. The attorney, no Wisconsin court decision will allow meetings unless you have good cause to provide less than 24 hours notice of a meeting. Okay. The provision, like all other provisions of the open meetings laws, must be construed in favor of providing the public with the fullness and most complete information.
Representative Barca.
If there's any,
Clerk, call roll.
No, excuse me. No, listen, it says if there's any doubt as to whether good cause exists, the governmental body should provide 24 hours notice. This is clearly a violation of the open meetings law. Now, look, you've been shutting people down. It is improper for you to move forward while this is a violation of the open meetings law. You're not allowing amendments, and that is wrong. Now, Mr. Chairman, this is a violation of law. This is not just a rule, it is the law. There must be... No, Mr. Chairman, this is a violation of the open meetings law. It requires 24, at least 2 hours notice.
What have you done?
Okay. Excuse me.
Democratic Assembly leader is shouting that the meeting that he is in is illegal, is a violation of the state's open meeting law. He's saying that as they decide that they're just going to call the roll over him. And he's saying, this is illegal, this is illegal, this is illegal. And they're saying, aye, we're adjourned. Joining us now is State Senator John Erpenbach, one of Wisconsin's 14 Democratic state senators who remain outside the state. Senator Erpenbach, what is your understanding of what the Republicans just did tonight?
Well, obviously, what they did is they certainly violated the open meetings laws in the state of Wisconsin. And what Representative Barca, the Assembly Democrat leader, had in his hands was something from a Republican Attorney General in the state of Wisconsin. So odds are this probably will end up in court. But in the meantime, what they did was they took out everything they said was non-fiscal, even though they've been saying the collective bargaining language was fiscal all along, which is why they didn't do this early on. And they passed it in the course of just a few seconds on the Senate floor. So you're talking about 5 or 6 decades worth of workers' rights just stomped out within a matter of minutes in the state Senate today. So obviously we're very upset about this. We had actually suggested that they kind of break up the non-fiscal stuff, which is what we suggested in the beginning, but they said they couldn't with collective bargaining because it was fiscal. But apparently now it's not fiscal. So I got to believe they have a huge explanation when it comes to everybody in the state of Wisconsin. Obviously, they've been lying about this all along, and they need to be upfront and honest as to why they did what they did. Rachel, they never once said this was about union busting. They never once said this was going after collective bargaining. They said it was about balancing the budget. Well, guess what? They still don't have a balanced budget, but they did it anyways. So their motives are real clear.
We face a tough time in this state. A tough economy, a tight budget, just like tight budgets all across this country.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Walker, you said the union leaders agreed to the financial cuts, but then you blamed the local unions for not following through on these pledges. That's because you refused to drop your demand to strip workers of collective bargaining rights that had nothing to do with the budget, and refused to negotiate and rejected the union's offer. Now, Governor Walker, if the unions in Wisconsin agreed to the financial cuts you sought, I don't understand how this can continue to be characterized as a debate about state budget deficits. This is supposed to be a hearing about state and municipal debt. I don't understand how repealing collective bargaining rights for public workers shows us anything about state debt. Can you please explain to me and members of this committee how much money this provision saves for your state budget?
That and a number of other provisions we put in, because if you're going to put in place a change like that, we wanted to make sure that we protected the workers of our state so that they had a right to know what kind of value they got out. It's the same reason we gave workers the right to choose, which is a fundamental American right, the right to choose whether or not they want to be a part of a union and whether or not they went up to $1,000.
How much money does it save, Governor?
Just that particular part doesn't save any.
Okay,
in the same way that
that's the point. It obviously has no effect whatsoever.
I'll answer your question.
I'm reclaiming my time. It obviously had no effect whatsoever on the state budget. I want to ask about another one of your proposals. Under your plan, you would prohibit employees from paying union member dues from their paychecks. How much money would this provision save your state budget?
It would save employees up to $1,000 per year they could use to pay for their pension and their health care contributions.
Governor, it wouldn't save anything. There are minor administrative costs, if any. It's obvious what the real intent is here. And
it's to give workers a right. It's to give the workers the right to choose.
I'll back it up. Mr. Chairman, right here from the State of Wisconsin's Legislative Fiscal Bureau, this is a nonpartisan state budget agency, much like the Congressional Budget Office. The Bureau was asked to identify provisions in the governor's bill that are non-fiscal policy items that have no state fiscal effect. This letter confirms the obvious, that Governor Walker's effort to repeal the rights of state workers is a non-fiscal policy item. No effect on the state budget shortfall.
Mentioned this right before the break, too. Another alert now. A judge in Wisconsin has struck down a law taking away nearly all collective bargaining rights from most state workers. The decision, however, is not the end of this legal fight, probably not by a long shot.
A Dane County sheriff says he is opening an investigation into allegations one Supreme Court justice choked another. Justice Ann Walsh Bradley claims fellow Justice David Prosser put her in a chokehold during an argument in the Capitol earlier this month. Prosser says he did nothing wrong, and the investigation will show that. The alleged incident apparently happened while they were discussing a ruling which upheld the controversial collective bargaining law. Today, Dane County Sheriff David Mahoney issued a statement saying his department would investigate. The Judicial Commission also confirmed it's investigating the claims. The agency oversees the state's courts and handles any potential punishment. Political analysts say no matter their political leanings, most Wisconsinites would agree that this is not how the state's highest court should operate.
The last 6 months have been tumultuous and almost unbelievable, almost incredible. And now for it to be topped off by sort of the fisticuffs going on between Supreme Court justices, this is hitting the bottom of the barrel. I think this is about as low as it can go.
Governor Walker also took issue with the allegations. The governor says the fighting within the court has to end for the sake of public confidence.
Good evening, everyone. Wisconsin Supreme Court justices heard several hours of arguments today.
That hearing is now over, but it's still not clear when the court might rule. The history of this case began in 2011. A Madison Teachers Union and a Milwaukee Public Workers Union sued. They opposed the new law that limits contract negotiating powers for almost all public employee unions. It also requires the unions to hold annual recertification votes. A Dane County judge sided with the unions, but then an appeals court sent the lawsuit to the state Supreme Court.
Continue to follow breaking news out of the state capitol. The Wisconsin Supreme Court upholds the law that sparked massive protests and controversy in the state. In a 5-2 vote, the court upheld Act 10 as constitutional. The law passed in 2011 effectively ended collective bargaining for most public workers in Wisconsin. The ruling is a response to a challenge filed by 2 different unions. The group argued the law violates workers' constitutional rights to equal protection. Well, taking a look